idiots, and we stand by that.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying we're professionals with this.
Professional idiots, yes.
Professional idiots.
Hi, Austin.
Hi, Hannah.
So, I don't know if you saw the email today. I've actually been sitting on this information for a few days, but then Spotify decided that they might ruin the surprise of this information for you. We have over 100 listens now between all of our episodes.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's 6 episodes with over 100 people listening.
Not 100 people necessarily, but 100 listens, like 100 plays between all the episodes.
I mean, I did see that we do have like 20 to 30 active listeners.
Oh, really?
For every episode, roughly. Like, it's like...
we've got the
audience.
average. Yeah, we've got like the average and everything.
Which, I mean, I'm happy with that so far.
I am too. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, and especially if this actually like goes somewhere, it's definitely not going to seem like a lot, but
no, right?
It feels good.
It feels good.
I honestly expected to have like 2 listens within the first 6 months.
Honestly, I didn't think we would have this many people this early on, even though it is kind of a smaller number. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's really, really cool to see. It's just like, wow, there's double digits worth of people that are actively listening.
And
so
it's only growing.
And it's only going to grow, and it is growing.
We're also on a bunch more streaming services now.
True. That's just
I got us on a bunch of
help.
stuff. So, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music.
Right.
We're on a lot of them now.
That's
on
awesome.
I think the majority of them at this point.
See, that right there is why I'm turning on Do Not Disturb.
Thank you.
Yes, because that just interrupts the podcast and interrupts Hannah doing her thing when she edits.
It's fine. It's good. Nothing's gonna be perfect. We don't expect perfection from this ever.
Never.
Do you have any? Are there any other like announcements or news or anything?
Not that I'm aware of. But you can find our logo. You can find
the artist that created our logo. You can find on Instagram at Minnesota Mitch Tattoo.
There we go. Yeah.
Because we're just gonna shout him out a few episodes in a row to make up for.
Hashtag Minnesota Mitch. No, at Minnesota Mitch on Instagram. Mitch Goggins, amazing tattoo artist, did our logo. Go check him out. He is the best. Mitch, if you're listening, you're the best, buddy. And I can't wait to see you in June. If you're listening to this before June. I do have something more on the topic of our podcast. So I was scrolling through the TikToks, as one does this day and age, and I am starting to follow 2 possible active serial killers as of 2023 now.
Wait, okay, hold on. Like, you're following their personal TikTok account?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Because that's what it sounded like you were saying. You're like, I'm following active serial killers on TikTok.
But how cool would that be, though?
Think about the awful shit that they could and probably would post. I mean, it makes me think of the selfie killer.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It kind of, if it was that, yes, I understand that.
Okay, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No. So there are other TikTokers that like to talk about this stuff, and they happen to be on my For You page.
Well, yeah.
Obviously.
Just like I get a lot of ghosts on my For You page.
Exactly. We get, so, yeah. So the 2 possible serial killers, because one has been confirmed, the other one hasn't yet, really.
Oh, so they're new.
So the first one is in Chicago, Illinois.
Oh, that's entirely too close.
They pulled out 7 to 12 bodies out of a lake. As the ice been melting, they've found bits and pieces washing up on shore, and they were dragging bodies out. The last time I heard is between 7 and 12 bodies they dragged out of the water.
So I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it, but I hate that you describe it as bits and pieces. But that's also exactly the type of thing that I would do. So I think that that's just comeuppance for me doing it to you all the time.
You're welcome. The other one is in Austin, Texas. Same thing. They've started pulling bodies out of the water. Out of a lake down in Texas there. That one I didn't have a whole lot of information on because I accidentally refreshed the page. And yeah. So that one, I have them written down. And
Okay,
I've been following the Chicago one. Whether or not I get to that in the next couple episodes or not, I don't know yet. It depends on how much information is out there. As well as the Austin, Texas one. I don't even know if I mentioned that it was in Austin, Texas.
Yes, you did.
So, yeah.
All right. Wow.
Anyways.
So Austin and I were talking
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday, and we decided that this week he is going to start the podcast to give you the second part of the Girl Scout murders. And I am going to end it with something that is about as lighthearted and goofy as macabre can be, in my opinion, because I was trying to find something that would just completely obliterate our moods after your story. So,
yep. So we thought it would be best to get the gruesome story out of the way. Well, not out of the way, but finish the story that I started.
Yeah.
And Hannah can end us off on a good note and with a cemetery fun fact.
So, with that being said, Austin, take it away.
I will. All right. So here we are with the Oklahoma Girl Scout Murders Part 2. So just a little recap of what happened last time. For anyone who's just joining us now, go check out episode 6, because this is episode 7, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So go check out episode 6. That is where I have the first part up. I am the second story of the episode 6. But so a little recap is we ended off with the investigation where they found the flashlight, the rope, the tape, the newspaper. They found that cave with the message etched into the wall saying the killer was here. Bye-bye, fools, with the date on there.
Still absolutely hate that message.
It is terrible. So the message on the wall with the date that said June 17th, 1977, led investigators to believe the killer was there for 5 days after the murder. 4 or 5 days after the murder, and they were there while they were searching.
Which, like,
that's just a big taunt.
On either end, whether it is you as the killer hanging out for that long,
mm-hmm.
like, 1, ballsy, 2, risky. But then also on the end of the police, knowing that they were right under your nose that whole time.
Right?
My God.
It's just, like, it's so, like, what I've been realizing in this story is how close everything is together. Like, they're just missing something every single time. And it started with that note that Michelle Hoffman brought to the camp director.
That he just ignored.
And, it's a prank. Come on.
What kind of fucking prank is that?
We're on a mission to kill 3 girls in one tent? And you have Girl Scouts coming in the next couple months?
Who's joking about that?
Even in 1977, I'm like, you're not that ignorant. You just didn't want to go and look.
Yeah, you just didn't want to deal with it.
You didn't want to investigate. You didn't want to make sure that nothing was going to happen. And then with the food items missing and the slashed tent that they found while the camp counselors were in training.
Like, there was so much evidence there was something being plotted. Something was going to happen.
Yeah.
And they just ignored it. Anyway.
They did.
Anyway.
They did. You're not wrong.
Salty.
So that leads us into part 2, where we're going to be talking about the man who is the primary suspect in the Girl Scout murder case. So during the investigation, as police were combing the woods for clues, and they were conducting hundreds of interviews as well during this time, they followed up on well over a dozen leads. And on June 23rd, 1977, police were able to name a suspect. His name was Gene Leroy Hart, age 33. He was a Native American and part of the Cherokee tribe. And here are some of the things that he was actually tried and convicted for. Hart was convicted of burglary and rape. He was also convicted of kidnapping. Hart had escaped from prison twice. During this time, Hart had been on the run from police for 4 years after a second escape from prison. His second escape was from the Mays County Jail, which happened to be in the same county as Camp Scott. So the DA announced that finding the cave was a huge break in the case, as they claimed that this could connect Hart to the murders. Now, to back up these claims, they said he's a very experienced woodsman, and he also had family members very close in the area, with even a mile away from the campsite.
Of course.
And with Native Americans, they're tight knit group of people, and would make sense that none of them would essentially rat out him if he was there or not. But I feel like that
there are some families that just have that dynamic.
I was gonna say there's a lot of families that, like, they don't care what you did. They're not gonna rat you out.
Yeah, just because you're family, they won't do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So on June 23rd, 1977, the largest manhunt in Oklahoma history would begin. After following up on many leads again and conducting interviews, it almost took them a year to find Gene. They finally caught him on April 6th, 1977. He was found by the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, and they were tipped off. I couldn't find out who tipped him off, but they were tipped off, and they went running towards him.
Yeah.
But they did find him on a Cherokee tribe medicine man's land. Say that 5 times fast.
I don't want to.
So the Cherokee tribe medicine man's land, they found him in a rickety old shack on that land, hiding out and making sure that they would never find him. Now with him in custody, it's time to start the trial. This murder trial took the state of Oklahoma back a year, and the media went in just a big old frenzy over this, as you could imagine, because they were in a frenzy from the beginning. I mean, you have 3 little girls murdered all in the same spot, and now it's all, they have the killer? They're the potential killer? Oh, they're all over this.
100%.
The trial was held in a courtroom in Pryor, a town almost dead center between Tulsa and Locust Grove, to try to keep some neutrality between this, even though it was such a big case for the last year. Everyone knows about it. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to find a lot of unbiased people to give the most fair trial possible. Mm-hmm. The judge on the case was William J. Whistler, and the defense attorney for Hart was Gavin Isaacs. Gavin Isaacs was recommended to the Hart family by a close friend of theirs. Isaacs, the defense attorney, recalls meeting Hart for the first time, and the first thing out of Hart's mouth was, "I want you to know one thing. I didn't kill those Girl Scouts." And Isaacs believed Hart when he said that.
Okay. I mean, he's the one who's been doing this job. So
I mean, we'll see. Also, a growing amount of community members and supporters believe Hart was not guilty as well. And these supporters started a community hog fry to raise the money for Hart's defense. I don't know what a hog fry is, but it sounds delicious.
Sounds like a pig roast.
Maybe that's what they call it down there.
That sounds like exactly the southern thing that a pig roast would be
called. A hog
called.
fry. We gonna have ourselves a big old hog fry.
Yeah.
Where we have a pig roast here in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think you're onto something, Hannah. These community members are under the belief that Hart is being railroaded by the police. Are you familiar with what railroading is in, like, I guess, legal terms?
I mean, I guess I could guess what it means, but I don't know how to put it into words.
So just to make sure that everyone's on the same page as well, it's to have a measure be passed quickly by applying pressure. So in this case, they're putting all the pressure on Hart. You're guilty. You did this.
Okay.
Like, they're like, they want to get this case over as quick as possible because the police know 100% that Hart did it.
So why does the community believe that he didn't, considering his track record?
They believe that Hart could do many gruesome things. They didn't, but the community believes that Hart couldn't just kill 3 girls like that. Because but I will say this, though, what goes against that, a defense against that, is that kidnapping was a 12-year-old girl that he kidnapped. The burglary and rape...
He could kidnap her, but he could never kill her.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, you got to remember, too, you're always going to have people that are against him and for him, whether they're right or wrong.
I know.
And as much as, like, you want this guy to be... You don't want to put a innocent man for this crime away.
You want to make sure that you're actually putting the right person away, and that justice is where it is supposed to be.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We want justice to be served to who actually did it. The police want to just convict somebody who has a past and is easy to throw the book at, which, given history with police and Native Americans, it's unfortunate that that's what police, I hate to say it, police have done in the past.
Police have gone after minorities, and that is shown, and we're going to leave it there.
Exactly. Just know that we don't think it's right.
No.
And because it isn't right. And as well, the Cherokee Tribal Council donated $12,500 for Hart's defense as well. The trial began 21 months after the murders happened, so this took place in March of 1979.
Okay.
Now, the state's case depended on two types of evidence. The items that were found in the cave less than 3 miles away from the camp, that included the roll of tape that matched the tape at the crime scene, and they found pictures in the cave that can link Hart to being there, because this is pictures on film that were suspiciously the same film that the photo lab had at the prison. The same prison that Hart was at.
Okay.
Biological evidence was found on the girls that included semen and hair samples.
We didn't have DNA at this point, did we?
Nope, DNA wasn't around until the mid-'80s.
That's what I thought. Okay.
There were 2 boot prints found, one in blood in the tent and one outside the tent in the mud. Again, it was a 9.5 size boot.
He got small peats.
He does. I'm like, I have a size 11 foot, and I'm not that big. I'm not that tall of a man.
Yeah.
Like, I just have big clown
I wear
feet.
size 6 in men's, which is obviously small because I'm not a man.
What size 6 in men is the size in women's?
Size 8.
Is it always a 2 size difference? Or like
It's
a general
something-
rule of thumb? Or general rule of thumb?
Something like that,
Okay.
I think.
Anyways, a little tangent for you. Hannah already brought this piece up, but with the biological evidence was useless at the time, since DNA evidence would not be introduced until the 1980s.
Okay,
So,
got it.
Hannah,
That's always my first thought when I hear that there's biological evidence and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, when did this take place, and when did DNA testing and like tracking become a thing?
right, just behind me here, Hannah, I'm just going to put a nice big sign for you that says
DNA
1980s.
evidence,
1980s, yeah. Also at the time, the hair evidence had been discredited as a forensic technique. So they could have used it, but in the eyes of the court,
forensics wasn't
forensics wasn't as big as it was until the 80s. They had some type of forensics, so that's why a lot of evidence gets discredited post 1980s.
Angie. Post 1980s?
Pre 1980s. Sorry. Gonna be a lot of head turns on that one.
Yeah.
Did he just police also admitted the evidence they found was inconclusive that Hart committed these murders. So yeah, the police initially said that Hart had done committed these murders, but then admitted the evidence they found was inconclusive to convict Hart. There we go.
Okay, now I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that they were like, well, it's inconclusive, but he definitely did it.
Yeah, no.
I thought that's what it was.
No. I left it. I think I left some words out. I must have went through that part really quick because the rest of it, yeah. Anyways, so with the hair being discredited and police admitting that the evidence was inconclusive, they turned to the fingerprints. But the fingerprints were badly smudged, and that was a bloody print on the flashlight.
Yeah, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. So on March 20th, 1979, the jury had a stunning verdict. What do you think the verdict was?
Well, it's hard if it's stunning at this point, because now we've seen both sides of the coin. I'm going to say that he was convicted.
He was found not guilty.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Because everyone thought that he was going to be found guilty because you didn't have the exact smoking gun, but you had...
But there was enough that it made sense.
There was a lot of evidence that pointed right to Hart, but there was a lot of evidence that pointed not to Hart.
Yeah.
But even with this loss of getting justice for Michelle, Lori, and Denise, there was still no way Hart was ever going to walk free. Because he still had time for his previous sentences.
When he had escaped from jail.
Yep, and added time for him escaping prison twice.
Prison break.
So he was still facing for all of his convicted crimes and escaping from prison, he was still facing a collective of 300 years.
Ain't that just a bitch?
Right? That's 3 lifetimes, realistically.
Well, he fucked around and he found out.
He did. He really did. So, fast forward to June. On June 4th, 1979, Betty Milner, who was Denise Milner's mother, received a call. And so did the other 2 girls' families, Michelle and Lori. The call stated that Hart was dead and he died from a heart attack while in prison. It was bittersweet to know Hart was dead, but it still left many people wondering, was Hart actually the killer? And was the real killer still on the loose? So, back in 1989, the case was looked over again. With DNA advancements, the FBI tested the sample of the semen that was found on the pillowcase, but found that test was inconclusive.
Oh, I mean, it's 10-year-old semen, so.
Exactly. It's biological evidence.
I don't know how they stored it, but...
So we'll fast forward now to 2008. The sample from the pillowcase was tested again by the FBI, but given how old the sample was, it was now too degraded to get any accurate test from it. As of 2008, the case has now officially gone cold. The only hopes now, says the sheriff and the FBI, is more advancements in forensic science or new evidence to appear. The camp was shut down after the 2 victims' families tried suing them for $5 million for negligence.
Yeah, I can get behind that one.
The 2 families were Michelle and Lori's family. Betty Milner, Denise's mom, didn't really want any part in it.
She probably just wanted to be rid of it all.
She did. These 2 families had said that weird and strange occurrences happening before the Girl Scouts trip should have been looked into more.
And it honestly should have shut down the camp for the year.
Or at least for a month or something until they can say, yeah, there's nothing, there's no one out here, there's nothing, or anything.
Do, very deep sweeps. And they should have been doing sweeps every single night following that, whether they found anything or not.
Weird stuff and wait, has weird stuff like this happened before? Or is this the first time?
When we say weird and strange occurrences, when I hear weird and strange, I think of cryptid sightings. I don't think of death threats, obvious signs of somebody hiding out and camping out nearby and taking advantage of the resources that you have.
Cutting open a tent?
Yeah, also that destroying property.
There's somebody out here messing around.
They gave you more than enough proof that they were there and they were serious. And you just fucking ignored it. You went, oh, it's just a prank. What? Who is joking about murdering 3 baby girls?
Right? And you had 2 camp counselors that had no knowledge of this, found it in a donut box, and all their stuff was ransacked?
Yeah.
They were looking for something?
There were so many signs.
It's 100% negligence. I don't know what happened to the camp counselor or anybody that was in charge.
It's really disheartening.
It really is to have something like that, just to play it off.
You were in charge of multiple young girls' lives for these few weeks that they're at camp.
Right.
And you can't even do the basic thing of reporting a fucking death threat and looking into the strange things that are going on that have never fucking happened before. All of these counselors were Girl Scouts at one point. They came together because they still wanted to be a part of this. And they probably wanted to bring the same type of magic to these little girls' lives that were brought to them by their camp counselors.
Yeah. And that's all.
Instead, they end up with 3 dead girls.
It was Michelle Hoffman's first time as a camp counselor, and that has stuck with her.
I absolutely believe that. Ugh.
So, there is some good news, though.
Tell me the good news.
I have some good news, actually. So the good news is Richard Guzet, the father of Michelle, helped state legislator pass the Oklahoma Victims' Bill of Rights. This bill is to preserve and protect the rights of victims to justice and due process and ensure that victims are treated with fairness, respect, and dignity and are free from intimidation, harassment, or abuse throughout the criminal justice process. Any victim or family member of a victim of a crime has the right to know the status of the investigation and prosecution of the criminal case, including all proceedings wherein a disposition of a case is likely to occur and where plea negotiations may occur as well. Basically,
the fact that it hadn't been a right to just know what the fuck is happening with these investigations that you're directly connected to.
Like, seriously, like, when I read this, I was like, why wasn't this a thing already? Like, victims, anybody that's involved with this process, this should always be a thing.
Right? Like
Like,
it should
to
not
have no intimidation, harass, or abuse from anybody, especially the police or anyone in the justice system.
Basic fucking right.
You are innocent until proven guilty. I will say one thing, defense of Hart, in my opinion, is we don't know if he actually committed committed this crime or not.
There's no way to know.
Yeah, he did all those other crimes, but it doesn't mean that he did this one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you shouldn't be like pressuring him and harassing him, regardless of what ethnicity, what he's done in his past. Like, yeah, your past is your past, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, he tried to escape from jail, but at the same time, did he commit these murders?
Here's the thing: police are not prosecution.
They're not jury. They're not judge, jury, or executioner.
No.
And I'm not saying our justice system's perfect by any means
No,
as
not
well.
at all.
And that's a whole nother topic that we're not going to get into.
No.
As of this time, but it's
going to be a recurring theme.
I will say,
covering true crime stories.
The most frustrating thing I find, and I hate to read every single time of any kind of true crime case, serial killer, anything, is how shitty the police work can be.
Yeah,
how shitty the investigation is. Even if you bring in your experts, your investigators, your coroner, anything, how intimidation from the police to get the coroner to say something else, or from an outside source or anything like that. It's like,
these things are not just things that happen in fictional TV shows and movies.
No. It happens in real life all the time.
You know, they say art is based off of reality. That's a
good way to put it.
There's a reason that, you know, some of these things are portrayed in TVs and movies and things like that, because they are real things that happen. At this point, there are so many, I think really just about anything is possible and can already have happened or can possibly still happen. It's just the reality looking at this world and the type of people that are in this world. And it's really unfortunate.
It really is. It really is. But another good news from Sherry Farmer.
Yes.
Lori's mother started the chapter of the Parents of Murdered Children Support Group.
Oh.
It's unfortunate she had to do that.
Absolutely,
and make this group, but at the same time to take this tragedy that happened in her life and turn it into something positive to help other parents and to have somebody that knows exactly what you're going through.
Absolutely.
And that's the biggest thing with anything. You feel so alone. Your child just got murdered. Like, who do you know that happened?
You need to have people that you can talk to about it freely.
Very, very freely.
And not feel like you're having to censor what you're saying about it to spare other people's feelings and to not make them pity you.
Exactly. I mean, that...
Because I've heard... I'm sorry. I keep interrupting.
You're good. No, you're good.
I've heard that it's very hard for parents who have lost children. For anyway, whether it's like something awful like this or it's an accident, whatever...
I mean, I lose my goddamn mind when I lose a pet. When I have to put a pet down in their old age.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a child.
And I feel bad enough telling people about that. I had somebody at work ask me the other day how Maisie was.
Oh, no.
And I actually kept it together at work.
Good,
I definitely cried when I told Christian. Mm-hmm. But it's hard because, you know, there are going to be people who don't know. But even when there are people who do know and they ask you, how are you doing? It's very hard to not just bear it all with something like that. And we're not saying at all that losing a pet is the same as losing a child.
No.
But we're saying that, you know, we understand what that feels like. We can't even imagine what it would feel like to be a parent. And that's what makes, I mean, that's not why we sympathize, but it's a big part of it.
We can empathize with it.
Yeah, like I had a doctor tell me one time, I can't sympathize because I don't understand, but I can empathize. It's just, and that's just basic decency.
You know that you're in a lot amount of pain, a lot of grief. You're going through the motions. Nothing makes sense anymore. It's a lot for the brain to process, for an individual to process.
Absolutely.
And to have a safe space in order to project these grief feelings and that feeling of loss and unknowing of the future, it's great to have a support group like this. Unfortunate there needs to be a support group for murdered children.
But I'm happy that there is one.
But yes, at the same
So
time,
that
we
the
don't live in a
people
perfect
who-
world.
Yeah, so the people who need it can utilize it
Absolutely.
and have this very specific type of support that they need.
The specific resource, specific support.
And that's the thing.
Nice.
It's not always just support. It's resources. It's figuring out how to go through the motions of everyday life.
Absolutely.
And all of this. It's a whole
agree
thing.
more. I couldn't agree more.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, actually I do.
Oh, okay.
So we have a case update as of 2022.
Oh my God, that's right.
Okay, hold on. Before you say anything,
I don't know anything about it, but
Okay,
I forgot.
good.
I think you had mentioned that there was an update.
yep, there is an update as of 2022. I may have mentioned that at the end of the episode last week.
Yeah, tell me the update.
So some years later, the new sheriff of Mays County took over. His name is Mike Reed, who was just a boy when the murders took place. He, as of the mid-2010s, started looking into the case and gave the families his word that he will do everything in his power to solve this case. After some time in re-examining the case, Sheriff Reed seeked out the help of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, where 23 homicide investigators assessed the case along with some FBI behavioral analysts and profilers. This group of investigators suggested the DNA be analyzed again, and it would cost around $30,000, something that the sheriff's department didn't have, but the residents of Mays County raised every single penny of it.
Goddamn right they did.
That's right there, an unfortunate circumstance. Oh, not even a circumstance. I hate that word, saying that. An unfortunate
Event.
That happened. It's amazing how something like that will just bring everybody together and get those answers that they so desperately need.
It brings us back to like our most basic human nature of understanding that we are all just people.
We are just people.
We are a type of creature that is social and have always had communities. Yeah. And that's what that's just generally what we need more of in this world when everything is so cut off.
Yeah.
Is we need community. We need community support. We need to know our community. And it's hard. Anyway.
In 2022, the Sheriff's Department announced after years of these investigators' assessments and analyzing every piece of evidence, and with the new DNA test performed, the evidence strongly suggests Hart's involvement in the murder.
No shit.
Like, they're 85 to 90% sure that he had some involvement or is the actual murderer. They don't know anything more than that.
Yeah.
But this evidence was processed back in 2019, but was not released publicly until 2022, when the families of the victims were comfortable enough to release this information.
Yeah.
So I got a couple questions for you, though, too.
Oh?
What do you think, though? Do you think with that information now, do you think Hart's the killer? I know you kind of alluded to it, but like your full opinion now with that new information. Like, was he involved with the murder, but didn't actually commit the murder? Or did he commit the murder, or was he never actually involved with it?
If I had to take a wild guess, like just a completely wild guess, I don't even know that I would say he was completely involved with it. I think he might have known something.
So maybe he had no role in it, but he knew the people that were gonna?
Because maybe somebody had approached him.
Oh.
And he was like, no. But he was aware of it. Or maybe he got roped into helping them afterwards with, like, hiding themselves.
I was going to say, because he's an experienced woodsman.
Yeah.
So they go and another ex-convict or something, or somebody knows of him and they know him.
Like, if I wanted to make a wild guess, that's what it would be. But
that's a really good... I have not heard that theory. I've listened to other podcasts that have covered this story. I've never heard that theory. That's a really good theory.
I have nothing to base this theory off of at all.
I mean, from the information that you were given, though.
My mind goes, like, okay, what is... Let's say he's not the killer. What is the most... Not necessarily the most outlandish, but what is something that's a bit more out there, but still plausible?
I mean, that's very plausible. Like I said, I've never heard that theory. That sounds like a really good theory, though.
Thank you.
Like a really good theory. Like,
I thought of it myself.
So, one last piece of information here. Anyone who's interested in checking out more of a deep dive into the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders and more of a family perspective, I highly suggest looking up the Hulu documentary called Keeper of the Ashes. And the reason why it's called the Keeper of the Ashes is because at the end of Girl Scout camp, at the end of the 2 weeks, whoever put out the fire last keeps the ashes, and then on their next trip they bring and they put the ashes into the campfire.
My heart.
Yeah. It is hosted by actress and songwriter Kristen Chenoweth. I can never pronounce her name, but she'll say her name in the documentary. I still can't pronounce it. Little tidbit on her. Kristen was 7 at the time when these murders happened, and she was supposed to go to that same camp at the same time, but was too sick to go.
I've heard this. I completely forgot about that detail.
And now she was like, I need to go back. I need to tell the story. And she and the producers and everything, this is probably one of the best documentaries I've watched in quite some time. It's only 4 parts. They're 45 minutes apiece.
Well, I've been needing something to watch. So.
But it's really well done. Really well done. There's a lot of information. There's more information on more of the family side than I gave, since I wanted to give more of the killer side.
Yeah.
The meat of the story. But it gives more of a broader...
It kind of looks at all sides.
It looks at more sides than just the murder. It looks at how it affected the families.
Absolutely. And because that needs to be talked about.
It does. And they focus heavily on Betty Milner as well, since Denise was...
I've noticed that she is focused on a lot when the story is talked about.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with... Well, there's a lot of reasons. But it really hits home that she initially didn't want to be there.
Yeah, Denise did not want to be there at all.
And it makes me wonder, was it genuinely because she was shy and she was nervous? Or, did she, almost know something? Did she have, a gut feeling? Did she feel like something bad was going to happen? But she was just too little to understand that she had some sort of intuition going on.
Possibly. I will say, though, watching the documentary, I think I may have left this out, but Denise did have a younger sibling, too. And there is something in the documentary that her little sister says to her mom at some point that's really eerie, but I didn't feel fit.
Okay.
The story of the meat of the story, where this fits more in the whole family aspect and how it affected them. So, like I said, I highly suggest it because you're going to learn more about it and more about the families. And honestly, it tugs at the heartstrings so much.
Yeah.
Sure. you want a story like that. You want to get your heartstrings played with a little bit. Go and watch that. But like I said, at the same time, they
always use a good cry.
They did an excellent job. In documentaries, I mean, I've watched so many that are just, the production's terrible. They play it towards entertainment instead of the facts.
Or they half-ass it.
Or half-ass it. That's why I like this one a lot, and I will always go off about the ones that did it really well. This one did it well.
Yeah.
You're going to hear a lot of information I told you, but you're going to hear a lot of new information, like I said, from the family side.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I hope you enjoyed, and all of you enjoyed, learning about the Girl Scout murders.
As much as you can enjoy.
As much as you can
enjoy listening to something like that.
It's intriguing, I would say, to say the least.
Yeah, that falls under the morbid curiosity kind of area that we try to scratch.
Absolutely. And I will be back with a brand new story next week. But I think, Hannah, what kind of lighthearted funness do you have for us today?
Have you heard of the Winchester Mystery House?
Winchester Mystery House. That doesn't follow Sam and Dean Winchester.
No.
No, this follow... Oh, God. It's been a while, but I think
I've told you about it before.
I think you have previously in late night talks.
Late night talks.
But the Winchester isn't...
I mean, I could just tell you because...
Yeah, I was trying to...
story.
You know what? I'm going in with... I probably will remember halfway through, but you know what? I'm going into this with a fresh mind.
Okay.
So, Hannah, take me away on this journey.
Okay. In San Jose, California, it's a sprawling mansion that was under construction between the years 1886 and 1922.
Wow. It's not too long, really.
For a house?
You said 1886 to 1922?
To 1922. It was under construction for almost 40 years.
Oh, under construction.
Yes.
Sorry.
Lord. Woof. Okay.
Sorry.
So, it's now a national landmark. Originally, this home was an 8-room farmhouse on 162 acres of land.
Wow.
By the time construction ended, the home was 24,000 square feet and had 160 rooms, among many other features, and it was pretty advanced for a home at this time.
160 rooms? Mm-hmm. I know mansions are big, but, honestly, who needs 160 rooms?
I'm going to tell you, Sarah Winchester does.
Sarah, that's her name. I was thinking Mary Winchester for some reason. No. Sarah Winchester. This is starting to ring a bell.
So let's talk about Sarah Winchester.
Let's do it.
Sarah was born in 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. She married her husband William Wirt Winchester in 1862. William Winchester was the treasurer of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company up until his death in 1881.
That checks out.
William died of consumption.
Oh, of course.
Mm-hmm. Upon his death, Sarah inherited his fortune, making her one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest, women of her time.
I just remember this entire story. Mm-hmm. I love what's about to happen.
So before William passed away, his father passed away, and he inherited his father's shares and everything from the company. And then when William passed away, Sarah inherited all of that. So, yeah, she inherited the fortune, but I've heard that she also inherited shares or stocks of the company, and in turn made a stupid amount of money daily from the company.
I could imagine. I mean, the Winchester Arms. I mean,
and we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it.
You have that part too.
That's actually this next note.
Awesome.
The Winchester Repeating Arms Company created what's known as the Winchester rifle, a repeating rifle that allowed the gunman to fire multiple rounds before having to reload the gun. This was monumental. Mm-hmm. Known as the gun that won the West, this line of rifles was actually discontinued in 2006 when the plant in New Haven, Connecticut that manufactured them was closed for good.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. This was a rifle that many armies around the world purchased. It was used in the Civil War. It was used, obviously, by a lot of people who were moving west in the late 1800s, hence the name, the gun that won the West. It was a very popular gun. It's a very well-known gun. And
there's
like I said,
reason why Winchester is still around to this day.
Yeah,
even.
And like I said, it was monumental. So it changed the game for a lot of things, for hunting, for warfare, for protection. Yeah,
anything.
Anything. So that's what where the Winchester name comes from. What Winchester has to do with this. Sarah and William had one child together, Annie, who only lived a month before passing away due to a childhood illness.
Oh.
I read that it was, I couldn't pronounce the name, but I think it was some sort of disorder that basically made it so she couldn't digest food.
Yeah, and I guess back in the 1800s, I mean, you don't have medicine to fix anything like that or treat it, so.
Yeah. Later on, all within a year, Sarah also lost her mother, father-in-law, and her husband. Within a few years of that, her oldest sister, Mary, also died.
Wow.
So this is where there seems to be some different information about her story. Some say that shortly after her sister's death, Sarah started to develop arthritis, and a doctor suggested she move to a warmer and drier climate to help relieve that. Totally plausible. But we're here to talk about the spooky things, so we're going to focus on the story that involves a psychic and ghosts.
Yes. Right on par.
Before we get too far into that, I do just want to take a moment and point out that Sarah was a woman who was well ahead of her time. She was well educated, spoke in multiple languages, and due to her inheritance was able to be incredibly independent in a time where few women were.
That is impressive. That is a part of the story I have never heard, actually.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this does come from privilege. She grew up in a wealthy family. She married a wealthy man. But regardless, she had these opportunities available to her, and she took them. So, right on.
Right on, girl.
So, here is the story. During Sarah's life, the first wave of spiritualism had come and gone, and the second wave had started and been underway by the time she passed away. Being among the many people who lost loved ones during the first wave, She was among the many people who also sought the help of a psychic to connect with her deceased loved ones. Sarah met with a medium in Boston, Adam Coons, who told her that her and her family were cursed and being haunted by the spirits of all those who were killed by the Winchester rifles, namely Native Americans and Civil War soldiers, because that's what was pertinent to them. That was what was in their scope.
Well, if it won the West, I mean, they're going after Native Americans.
That wasn't an easy or clean win.
No.
That's for sure.
No.
So what do you do if you're being haunted by a bunch of Native American spirits and Civil War soldiers?
I mean, I'd say cleanse the house, but I don't think this is where this is going.
Well, considering it's her and her whole family that's cursed. In order to appease these spirits, she was to move out west and build a house for them. Gets better. Construction on the house was to never end, or she would face terrible luck or meet the same fate as her loved ones and die.
Yeah, because that was what the medium told her, right? Mm-hmm. That you need to keep building and change every single room.
Mm-hmm. So I have a little newspaper blurb, and then I'm going to mention something that I did. I don't actually have it in my notes, but I remember seeing it in one of the articles I was reading. So,
cool.
The headline is Strange Story. A woman who thinks she'll die when her house is built. 10 years ago, the handsome residence was apparently ready for occupancy, but improvements and additions are constantly being made for the reason, it is said, that the owner of the house believes that when it is entirely completed, she will die. This superstition has resulted in the construction of a maze of domes, turrets, cupolas, and towers covering territory enough for a castle.
What's a cupola? I'm like, I have never heard this term before. And I actually
heard it recently, and I can't remember what it is. In architecture, a cupola is a relatively small, most often dome-like tall structure on the top of a building, often used to provide a lookout or to admit light and air. It usually crowns a larger roof or dome. So think like those random little square things on top of houses, or when you've got like a tower on a house and it's got like here.
Oh, yeah, one of those. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Wow, okay. Well,
and so
there's a word for everything.
There was another, was it an article? Blurb? Newspaper blurb, something underneath where I found this quote. And that was by the San Jose Daily News on March 29th, 1895, by the way. That stated that she was, like, she had her head on her shoulders. She was
very well put together?
Yeah, she was a very well put together woman.
Okay.
It didn't seem like there was anything strange about her, almost to the point that, like, she was almost extraordinarily normal. Like, she didn't seem like she was off her rocker.
Not like at that time where women would be treated for hysteria.
Right.
Okay.
Like, there were some people that were like, no, she's got it together. She's good. Like, she's not crazy. So.
Okay.
Just want to throw
at
that
least
out
one
there.
woman in history is not called crazy.
I'm glad it was this one. So, let's talk about the construction of the Mystery House.
This is the fun part.
There were no official construction plans and no blueprints ever made.
I love this.
Though Sarah would eventually hold regular seances and speak with the ghosts about how to make them happy with the house.
Yes.
Right. The house was mostly built in a Victorian style, along with some Gothic styles kind of mixed in. The house was innovative for its time, having light switches, indoor plumbing, showers, elevators, and an annunciator, which is like for communication throughout the house. Think of it as almost like the first kind of intercom system.
Oh, but they called it an annunciator?
An annunciator.
Wow. Well, I mean, I guess.
Mm-hmm. To keep construction ongoing, she would have rooms and parts of the house built to completion, come see it when it was finished, and then have the workers scrap it and start over with a completely new plan. I read that there was a tower that was constructed and torn down multiple times.
I believe that. With what I know about this construction and everything, it doesn't surprise me. Mm-hmm. Hey, that looks great. Tear it down.
So in 1906, there was an earthquake that collapsed parts of the house and trapped Sarah in her room. And it said that Sarah took this as a sign from the spirits that she was too close to finishing the house.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Only too close to finishing the house. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And at this point, I think there was at least 5 stories to the house. And this brought it down to, I think there's They didn't, like, keep going back up after that. They, like...
They did the 5 and then they just basically
Well,
renovated?
because so much of it fell down.
Oh, yeah.
They just didn't build it back up. So I think there's, like, 3 or 4 stories to it now.
Gotcha, okay.
It said that she designed the house to be maze-like in order to confuse and trap the spirits that were haunting her.
Oh, okay.
At one point, there were about 600 rooms in this home.
600.
And the home took up multiple acres.
Gee, you think? Mm-hmm. Wait, was that 600 rooms with the 5 stories or 600 rooms after the collapse?
I don't know.
But at one point...
At one point, there were 600 rooms, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So, it's just a few things that are going on in the house, right? There's trapdoors, obviously. Staircases that led to nowhere, or that were just in the middle of rooms. So you had to, like, go up and down the stairs just to stay in the same room.
Makes perfect sense.
Obviously. Doors that open to just blank walls, or doors that open to tall drops if you were going to step through. So there's one door that opens just to the outside on the 3rd story. So you just... And there's another door, apparently, that if you open it, it drops down to a kitchen sink.
I love the randomness.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Closets that actually open up to passageways through the home. Windows in the middle of rooms or hallways that look into other parts of the house. That was just because they just kept adding on.
Best place for hide and seek ever.
Mm-hmm. Skylights between the floors.
So you could see... Wow.
Hallways that turned corners into just, like, an abrupt dead end.
That'd be a
Like,
bitch.
if you round that corner too fast, you're probably gonna smack into the wall. At least that's what I'm picturing.
I mean, yeah, like, that wall is only, like, an inch away from that corner. So it's like, bam, till you're right there.
So, construction and maintenance of the house ended as soon as the workers got word of her death. And she was 83 years old when she passed away.
83? Mm-hmm. And when did she start building?
She started building in the 1880s, and I believe she passed away in 1922.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Many of the workers had been working on this house for the length of its construction, and they all had an understanding that building the house would come to a halt at her death. But, like, talk about job security.
Seriously. Oh, until you die? Okay.
Like, honestly, if I were a construction worker and I had the option to just work on a home for 40 years, like, okay, I know that she's just going to have me tear it down and do it again anyway, so, like...
Could you imagine taking on a project like that? You could perfect your
she
craft.
She had the money.
Oh, more than the money.
She had more than the money. Some speculate that she spent a majority of the inheritance on this home.
I could imagine.
And I do have some numbers for you later on.
Yeah, let's hear the number. Oh, yeah, when we get there. Or when you get there.
So, like I said, we come to a halt at her death. There are nails that are only partially driven into the walls because everyone picked up and left once they heard she had passed.
Creepy.
Mm-hmm. By the time construction finished on the house at her death in 1922, the house featured, and this is from the Winchester Mystery House website, 24,000 square feet, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 160 rooms, 52 skylights, 47 stairways and fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, and 6 kitchens.
For those of you who can't see what's happening, my jaw was on the...
He literally just picked his jaw up off the floor. Built at a price tag of $5 million in 1923, or $71 million today.
There's mansions today that cost more than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. But still, 71,000 in today's money?
But think about that. $5 million?
Or 71 million?
$5 million in 1923? That's like an astronomical number in 1923. Home that costs that much is nearly unheard of. So let's talk about what living in the labyrinth was like.
Yes, absolutely.
Sarah lived in the house for some time until the earthquake happened, and then she moved from the home but would visit it daily to keep tabs on the construction. It said that when she did live in the home, she would sleep in a different bed every night to confuse the ghosts, and would use secret passages to move throughout the house so that the ghosts couldn't find her.
I mean, I guess I get that logic.
Apparently only one of the 13 bathrooms were functional, also to confuse the ghosts.
What ghost is going to need to use the bathroom? Oh, I guess if she's got to use the bath. But if she's
So,
using one.
But think about, like, maybe it's like, okay, there's all these bathrooms. Maybe they'll choose to haunt the other bathrooms, and then I have a functional one, and they'll leave me alone.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's all speculation. It's not like we can just ask her. She wrote all this down of what she thought.
Well, and she didn't. There were no journals, nothing left
What if
behind.
there was a diary buried somewhere on the property?
There's not.
How do we know?
Just.
I'm full of questions.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Apparently, Sarah was rumored to have a seance room in the house. I also heard that she had 13 different robes for the seances. There's this rumor that the number 13 is a big theme in it, but I've heard that that's been added on past her death to add to the story.
Oh.
So, like, I've heard, like, there's 13 panes in every window. Every chandelier was modified so it would have 13 arms on it, like, all of that. But as far as I can tell, that is just legitimate, full-on lore. And a lot of this might also be lore, too, but that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
Neighbors reported hearing ghostly music in the night coming from the house, which was attributed to Sarah playing her organ when she had trouble sleeping.
Oh my god. Sound like a horror movie cliche here.
I can't sleep, so I'm going to play my spooky organ
That
and
makes
let
sense.
everybody hear. So, we do have some hauntings.
Ooh, okay.
So, some things that happen. Icy chills that follow guests. Hearing organ music. Or glass breaking. Handprints left on guests. I don't know how I feel about this one. Temporary blindness.
No thanks. If that's a real thing that many people have experienced, you can...
And I mean, enough people have experienced it, apparently.
oh.
I tried to call Winchester to ask them about it, but their system is, like, completely automated, and it's hard to get connected to a person unless you know their specific extension.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately. So, smells of food cooking in the kitchens.
Yum.
Kitchens.
Yeah, kitchen.
Floating lights or orbs.
Of course.
Apparitions or shadow people. And I've seen that there's pretty much every type of haunting here. There's a residual haunting, there's an intelligent haunting, there's apparitions or shadow people, like actual manifestations, and all of that. Employees will hear their names being called while they're closing up.
No thanks.
Doors unlocking and opening on their own. And I also heard that they actually have staff that go and check the doors throughout the night after closing because of this.
Could you imagine having to be, like, on call?
If that's my whole job is to go... And actually, no, I don't want to go there.
No, at the middle of the night. Unless I have somebody there with me, I wouldn't want to go in that some bitch
Because
alone.
if everything's unlocked, then they're forced to walk through the whole house and check it and make sure it's secure.
And I will have I will
You
implement
better believe every fucking light is coming on in that house. I don't care how many rooms there are.
buddy system. Implement the buddy system. Where's your buddy? Do you have your buddy?
All right, so I've got a couple stories.
Yes. Let's hear the stories.
One maintenance worker reported hearing footsteps on the floor above him in a part of the house that was off limits. He followed what he thought was a trespasser up multiple floors, as it seemed they were always just a bit ahead of him and moving up the levels quickly.
Okay.
The chase ended on the roof, and the worker was the only one there.
Gross. No thanks.
A contractor working on the house was almost shoved off of his ladder by unseen hands after he had originally felt a ghostly tap on his shoulder, but continued working because he looked and nobody was there. After that more violent approach at getting his attention, he left the room for the day and found work elsewhere in the house, which I'm sure there was plenty.
Yeah, I bet there was.
Like, yeah, if I have the option to just be like, no, you know what? I'll come back another day.
You can have this room for today.
Yeah. Like, I get it. You don't want me here. While renovating the basement of the house and getting it ready for tours, many people kept seeing a man with a mustache wearing white coveralls, and they would ask whoever was in charge who he was because they didn't recognize him. But he was helping and he was moving stuff. No one knew who he was, and it wasn't until they uncovered an old photo in the basement that they realized this man was a ghost of someone who used to work in the house.
Whoa.
And I'm just imagining him, like, just seeing everybody working and being like, I'll help. I got a wheelbarrow. I'm here, ready to go. Like, he was literally helping haul stuff out of the basement.
That physically.
Like, as far as I know.
People were watching him take stuff.
That, or maybe they just saw him moving the dirt and they thought he was actually taking it or whatever. Like, but I heard that multiple people saw him working and helping.
I mean, hey, do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life, even after death.
Yeah, so they found a picture in the basement of a bunch of workers, and he was standing right on the edge, and everybody was like, that's him.
Creepy.
So.
All the way back from the late 1800s or early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
Gross.
Okay, so I have some random fun facts about the Winchester Mystery House.
Let's hear.
Disneyland took some inspiration from the house for their Haunted Mansion attraction.
Which then stemmed a movie.
Mm-hmm. Shirley Jackson, who wrote the book Haunting of Hill House, mentions the house in her novel. She grew up nearby.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a state landmark, and it is open for guided tours. I took a peek at their online gift shop, because why wouldn't I? Mm-hmm. They've got a few things on there, a couple cute things. They have coasters that say, "The spirits are calling and I must go." And I'll take 20.
I love that. Yes.
So like I said, like, she didn't leave behind there was no blueprints, there was no journals, nothing like that. And the reason I say that I don't think they're going to find it, if there is any, which I don't think that there are, is because in 2016, a previously unknown room was found by the preservation team at the house. They think it was probably boarded up when the earthquake happened, because after that she had boarded up a chunk of the house and just been like, eh. Inside was a dress form, a sewing machine, a Victorian couch, and paintings. But I also read or heard somewhere that they also found a doll that was just facing the door of the room.
Absolutely not. No.
So.
If it's a spirit pushing me or a doll, I'll take the spirit pushing me. Fuck dolls. God, they're creepy.
So that's the Winchester Mystery House.
I totally forgot about it until you started talking. And like, yeah, I was like, what is this? Like, there's something very unique. The rooms, like, I just can't believe that she had that many rooms and she decided to just keep rebuilding. Well, not deciding, but to just never finish it. Mm-hmm. But
that was the whole thing.
I mean, but a question that does stem is, when she died, does that mean that family curse is no longer there because she was like the last blood?
Well, potentially. The way that I see it is that she was tasked with building a house for these ghosts that were cursing and following her family, and she did just that.
True.
So
I wonder if she
I would think that the curse maybe died with her.
Potentially, then.
But she was trying to be sneaky and make it all confusing for the ghosts and everything so that they would get trapped.
Because we could go on a long tangent about like how ghosts and
movements, especially the first two, whew, they're crazy. But we did get a lot of what we have in New Age spiritualism. Not a lot of what we have in New Age spiritualism, but some of the basics that you think of when you think of like spiritualism, like the Rider-Waite tarot deck.
Right.
That specific style of tarot. That came from the second wave, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
The Ouija board came from the first wave. It actually used to be a parlor game, and supposedly the Ouija board named itself.
That I believe. If the Ouija board is what it claims to be, I believe that.
And I think I've said it before, but like I'm going to cover the spiritualist movements. The thing is that's going to be like a 2, potentially 3-parter.
Make it as long as you want. The more information
because I'm going
to
delve way into it because it's just super fascinating. But the gist of it is that they really came around at these times where there was a lot of loss of family members because of wars. The first one during the Civil War, the second during the First World War. And people would start seeking out mediums and psychics in order to connect with their dead loved ones. So, and like I said, we can get into it. But that's basically the gist. Why they happened and the amount of things that came from it are just crazy. Like the American Psychical Research.
You say that again?
What is it? It's
American
called
what?
Cyclical Research.
Cyclical.
Or American Society, I think, of Cyclical Research.
Cyclical. That's a word?
Yeah. The American Society for Cyclical Research is the oldest cyclical research organization in the United States dedicated to parapsychology. It maintains offices and a library in New York City, which are open to both members and the general public. I want to work for that.
I mean,
I want to work for it.
It sounds like right up your alley where you should work it. I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and it's just listed purpose, parapsychology. So
Hannah, I think we found her calling.
probably. Do you want a cemetery fun fact?
Let's hear the cemetery fun fact.
This one's morbid.
All right.
Pregnant women attending a funeral and walking on the grave will result in a child with club feet.
God, if that was actually like 100% true.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure I've seen plenty of pregnant women to walk over grave sites.
Are you just hanging out in cemeteries watching pregnant women walk over graves?
Okay, let's not take this out of context here.
Just saying, the fact that you said, I've seen plenty of pregnant women walk over graves, what are you doing in your free time?
Okay, you gotta remember, I was an ROTC, and I was the commander of the color guard, so I presented the colors at a lot of different memorial stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And now you know.
I knew that you were in ROTC, but I didn't know that was like a thing that you did in there.
And now there's something new you found about me. Wow, we still have new things to talk about.
God, we're gonna run out one of these days.
One of these days. We gotta not see each other for like 5 years or something then. So then we can have new stuff to talk about. I don't know if I could go 5 years without seeing you.
Well, especially if we're doing a podcast together.
True. True. God, I'm never gonna get rid of you.
Nope. All right, well, that was episode 7 of the Bleeding Grave podcast.
Man, that episode was a trip.
That was a trip. That was a good one.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us again here on episode 7. We will see you next week on episode 8.
Bye.
See ya.
The Bleeding Grave podcast is hosted by Hannah Slavic and Austin Wenger.
Music by Hannah Slavic.
You can find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
You can listen to The Bleeding Grave on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Google Podcasts.